Portfolio management is the second of 7 knowledge areas for product mastery. Senior product leaders already know why portfolio management is needed, but product managers have asked me in the past why they must understand it. The short answer is because you need to know how projects are selected so you can get support for your ideas. However, it's not a factor for everyone. Some organizations only have a single product, but what do you do when that changes and you go from one product to other products, and how can you be involved in the decision making? Kotykia joins us to discuss the challenges organizations face expanding from one product to more than one product. Greg is an experienced company, product, and program builder in various markets, serving as CEO 6 times now, COO 2 times, and founder 4 times. He currently serves as the CEO of SE Healthcare and as a coach for SEO Coaching International. Previously, Greg was the CEO and board member of Sophion. That was where we met at a PMN&x conference, actually, when he was CEO there. And they're a leader in enterprise innovation and product management software and services. He's also established and launched the Carnegie Mellon University's master's program in product management, which I am envious of. It is the world's first product management degree, serving as its founding executive director. And these are all certainly impressive accomplishments, but perhaps Greg's most admirable characteristic is this: the people he has led respect and even love him. He knows how to create lasting influence, which is something else we can learn from him. So let's jump in and learn what is involved when expanding from one product to more than one product.
How can you unlock your full potential as a product manager? We're sharing the product management insights you need. They are based on the 7 research-backed knowledge areas you'll learn to create products customers love, enhance your influence, and elevate your career. Welcome to Product Mastery Now, hosted by Dr. Chad McAllister, product management professor, practitioner, and your guide.
Greg, thanks for joining us.
It is great to be here, Chad. Thanks for having me here. Look forward to our discussion today.
I've been looking forward to this very much. We've never worked together, but just based on what other people have said about you, I would very much like that opportunity. You have such great success and impact on people. And I wanted to start with that. If you were just to reflect on your success, what are a few of the factors that you think really have come together that have helped you have that success?
Wow, that's a great question, and thank you. I was very honored to hear that people have said such kind words and shared them about me, Chad. What I like to think about myself is I was treated the way many of my managers, bosses that I admired and loved working for through the years, in which we agreed on what the goals were that we wanted to accomplish for the organization, and they gave me a long leash to go get those outcomes and get those results. And I'll never forget one of my favorite managers, a gentleman by the name of Ed Leisure, when I was working at Eaton Corporation. We agreed on what we needed to do one session. He said to me, "Look, the only time you need to come see me is if you have a problem, you need to work something out, you want to talk about it, you're struggling with something, you come to my desk and we'll sit down and we'll work it out." And so that kind of trust in the relationship, I think, is essential. The ability to allow people to figure out how to do their job and to not tell them how to do it, but help them achieve their outcome. I think it gives people a great deal of ownership. And that responsibility, I think, makes them feel respected, and they overachieve as a result. It's a simple recipe, but I was treated that way, and I hope that I treat others that way.
That's great. Yeah, it's good for all of us to have those positive experiences for managers where we say, I want to be more like this person. I've really enjoyed that relationship. And often we also learn those things from the not so good managers of things we want to avoid. And you may have had some of those as well, since most of us have. But I love that. Treating people the way that you were treated, right? Passing that on, agreeing to what the goals are, the outcomes, and working towards that, empowering people to let them do the job and know that they have help and resources when they need it as well. So
Yeah.
good. Wanted to start there, but we are going to talk about this issue of moving from one product to more than one. And there's challenges along the way, no doubt. And I don't think I've ever been successfully part of this. I've been unsuccessfully part of the startup environment where we didn't quite figure it out. So I probably ran into some of the challenges, but knowing the challenges and what to do would be helpful. So wherever you want to start comes to mind in this process.
Yeah, well, I will tell you, it is one of the most difficult things that organizations face. It is so hard to create one commercially successful product that drives a business and people get excited about, and usually, particularly in software companies, but it
Mm-hmm.
happens in other businesses as well. The product that initially gets success is equated to the company, and they are one and the same. The
Right.
company and the product are one and the same. And every product, as we know, in innovation and product management and any type of management of products, any innovation, they all have life cycles. And I recently penned an article that talked about how few $100 million software products there are. And it is a very small, it is very rare air to get above $100 million with one product. So if you aspire to be a very large company, at some point, you're going to reach this point of saying, I have to have more than one product and I have to have multiple successful products. It's just the nature of wanting to have a successful business. And it's tough because so much energy is associated with the company as the product. And when you go to that second product, you have the immediate cultural issues,
Mm.
resource allocation, challenges of risk. Many times you're 5, 6, 10 years into success with this one product, and you forget how tough it was in those early days. And you're in those early days with the new product or a couple new products, and it's like, oof, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. And this thing's taken a lot more resource, a lot more money, a lot more time. And what if it's not successful? If we'd have spent this money on the product that we know already, we would have got 10x back from that. So why
Right.
don't we just stop that thing and go back over here? So it is at its root, moving to what I call the second product problem is fundamentally a cultural issue. It is
Mm.
a cultural and change issue.
Yep. Yeah, the culture aspects I think are significant there, right? So you mentioned risk, resource allocations for sure. But as you said, when you have one product and you are successful, probably shouldn't be doing this until we get that one product successful in the marketplace and working well. But the company and the product are the same, and the people also identify with that product, right?
Yes,
And
they do.
so obviously there's something that makes sense in the core capabilities of the organization and the markets that we serve to move to that next product. But it's different for the people involved. You want to talk about the cultural aspects a little bit?
Yeah, I think that is probably the most difficult part because there's many fabulous stories about this. We go back into the 1980s where you have the most notable story of Apple riding the success of Apple II, the moneymaker, the cash cow. Steve Jobs and others visit Xerox PARC and enamored
Mm-hmm.
with graphical user interfaces, decide that they want to build this thing that first becomes the Lisa, eventually becomes the Macintosh. But it was interesting. It's a very cultural story. It's not a technology story. What does he do? He basically picks off the best engineers, the best product people, whatever, and he takes them to a different building.
Mm-hmm. Right, for the
puts
Macintosh.
a puts them on puts a flag, a pirate flag on the top of the building, and basically says, "We're doing something different over here. It's not a part of the core business." And people do that now today, and maybe they did it before then. I may be a victim of the time and the story, but cornering off and actually creating a separate team, a separate group, a separate organization
Mm-hmm.
creates that culture and the ability to build it and take risk and make that investment while not distracting or influencing the core business. Now, many people try to do it internally, and I've never seen it fully succeed that way. Inevitably, bad times come along, and when they do, people will go back to the primary product that brought them to the dance. And inevitably they say, well, we tried a second product, but it didn't work, or it was a bad product. And they get 1,000 excuses. At the end of the day, they just didn't have the discipline or will to drive through to get to the second product. And then, of course, there's the old saw, well, we can't build anything internally, so we just have to acquire it. And that's the only way. And even acquisitions get brought in and eventually get killed for some of the same reasons,
Right.
because people look at them as a distraction, or didn't fit into our product set, or didn't fit in our messaging. So they eventually kill that product off because they're still focused on the primary product that is the cash cow, or the thing that pays the paycheck.
Right.
And
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
hard. It's really hard. But the portfolio companies benefit. Companies that have more than one product that are more successful really are the companies that understand that there's a separation. And this is an important point that I think for your listeners. When you go from one product to multiple products, the corporate management for the first time realizes that they're not just focused on this one product or one service. Now they have to focus on the company and the company issues, and they have to delegate the responsibilities of product to the product organization, to product management, product developers, operational customer success. And that really tests the strength of the culture and the people that you have. Can you actually not be the CEO who says, well, we need this feature in the product in order to win this piece of business? And can you focus on what are we doing to operate our business? That's a different job all of a sudden. And some people can't cross that chasm. So
Right.
it's another cultural change that takes place in terms of roles and responsibilities.
Absolutely. Okay, I want to go back to the Apple reference and
Yes, I'm sorry.
well, no, we're going to tease out all kinds of good nuggets of truth here that help people. So that example was the kind of the autonomous team, the skunk works team, right? The raising the pirate's flag, making this very clear. One of the things that is valuable in that I've noticed as well, when you try to do it in the same group, right? We all come together every day and work, and there's this new project over here. Sounds interesting. And there's some people that are going to, because we're interacting all throughout the day, right? Maybe this doesn't happen as much if you're pretty remote anymore, but we have been bringing employees back quite a bit to physical offices. And you're interacting every day. And there's some people that say, that sounds really interesting, more interesting than the thing I'm doing, right? And that creates, so we kind of have this two culture organization. And there's some people on the other side that say, why are we doing that? Right? This is our thing that we're good at. This is what we're known for. Why don't we double down further on that, as you said earlier, right? Spend more money on that and get more value out of that. Why are we doing that? And just the simple act of taking those people out and putting them in their own building where that water cooler kind of talk isn't going on, that helps alleviate a lot of that all by itself. And it lets that group focus, and lets the other group, the core, focus on the original product. And I think that's a helpful structural element that you suggested to just give the best chance for success to both groups.
I would agree. I prefer that style myself. I've seen organizations say, well, we're going to modernize our old product, and so we're going to have a next gen product, and they pick some people off of the team, and they're all sitting together. It's like, ooh, why did Mary or Joe get picked to go on next gen, and I wanted to work on next gen, and why wasn't I? They said there's jealousy, or there's the other people who say, well, I don't want to work on that. I want to work over here because if that next gen thing fails, I want to stay where everything. So you get all these issues of motivation and things like that. If you cleave it, if you separate it, you give it a chance to survive and stand on its own. I did some consulting for a really great company that's outside of Philadelphia in the tax software business of all things called Vertex. And Vertex actually, faced with an older enterprise software product, did something that very similar to what Apple did, is that when they were creating from the ground up their multi-tenant SaaS cloud solution, they literally put those people in another building somewhere else and let them establish everything from their pricing to their terms and conditions to their accounting to their customer set, everything. They let them do it. And I think it wasn't until they got to $5 or $10 million that then they said, okay, now we're going to try to bring you back in to the organization. And even then, it was difficult to do that. It was very difficult. But it would have never gotten to that $5 or $10 million and all those things if they had kept it within the confines of the established business.
Right.
They fully admitted that they could have never actually gotten there.
Right. Yeah. Very good. We're both involved in PDMA. You're a PDMA board member. So this nonprofit organization for professional product innovators, product managers. And I don't know if you were at this annual conference, but I get a lot of my good stories from speakers at the annual conference. And Wrigley's Gum was there. And
Yeah.
they shared the story about that they were not on a good path, right? They didn't use the word bankruptcy, but they were not on a good path. And doom was coming, they knew. And they created a innovation center, I think in Chicago. You may recall
Oh
this
yeah.
better than me, right?
Yeah.
And they selected people, they asked for volunteers. Like, this is a make or leave sort of opportunity, right? You're either going to be successful paving a new product future for Wrigley's Gum, or you're not going to be part of the organization because there won't be anything to come for you to come back to, right? And that was the autonomous standalone opportunity. And they were successful. They came out with 5 gum, which was very different at the time, and then quickly copied by all the other gum manufacturers. Yes. But 5 was unique in so many ways, and also built out of some good customer research. That this notion of making it easier to share gum with people, right?
Absolutely.
But that was just a good example of that autonomous sort of idea for a product.
Yes. And you have to understand the type of people too. When you're in a business that is at the stage of more maturity and regularity, it's what Steve Blank talks about. Just like early startups are in search of a business model, and what regular businesses are doing is creating the efficiency of the business. You attract different people that are inspired or motivated to work in those types of operations. So just assuming that the people who are very good at operating an efficient business are going to be the people who can be effective at finding the business model, that in of itself is not a fit. And so that's why so much of the second product problem is cultural and doesn't fit as well. So you've got to understand what kind of people you have in your business, all the way down to how they're compensated, their risk tolerance, their type of decision making, how they're structured, how they're organized, the risk allocation that you have. All those things becomes very difficult. But what should be compelling to everybody is the knowledge that if you don't get to more than one product, you cannot have your company survive for a long period of time if you're riding one product.
Right.
That is actually much more riskier to have one product than to have multiple products.
Right. Yeah, and that's because of the product life cycle. And for most industries, that's been getting shorter, which simply means the time that you can stay viable in the marketplace is not as long as it used to be, right? And there's competitors that will do a better job if you don't find other ways to serve the customer as well.
Yeah. Another quick Apple story that always mesmerizes me that I often think about, and actually Netflix has a similar story. We can focus for a few minutes on both of them. Is that I'm often think about Jobs getting purchased at Next by his old company Apple, comes back, and what really saves the company is not only the paring down of product offerings to get focus, but then he goes in a different direction and comes out with the iPod. But the thing about the iPod that is just unbelievable is the product, and iTunes saves the company, right? It saves the company. And any other business or most technology businesses that you and I and your listeners are familiar with would be like, wow, we found a second product that drove all this revenue. Here we are, we got a home run, and they'd be milking that thing for years. But instead, Apple goes along and says, we're going to kill that product. We're going to come out with a phone before somebody else does. Matter of fact, we're not going to take that wheel that everybody knows is the thing on the product. We're not going to take anything from it other than the software of the iTunes. And we're going to go into the phone business and make that iPod a feature of a new product. You talk about incredible discipline and risk taking to do such a thing. Similarly, Netflix, they built a business off of sending DVDs in the mail. They could have rode that and forever, and they decided to kill that business with a streaming business before their competitors did. Few business leaders have the wherewithal and the risk taking to do that. And that's why they ride off into the Kodaks and the
Right.
other businesses that were all, and the blockbusters that we're also familiar with, because they just hang on to dear life thinking that there's going to be a third chapter or a fourth chapter, and it's never going to happen. It's just not going to
Hmm.
happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to revisit the other side of this, the unfortunate dark side, right? Which is
Oh, oh,
these are
Chad, there's a dark side. Tell me it's not true. I was feeling so good about all these
you've never
products.
seen it. Well, this will be interesting. Um, yeah, because these are the good stories that we know because they're
Yes,
visible, right? And Apple certainly well admired, Netflix amazing. Unfortunately, there's lots of stories that aren't known because they were never successful. And
correct.
from my view of them, I haven't been in the middle of one. I have had people call and talk and ask about, what right? The From my view of it, it often, I think actually in every case, it comes back to a cultural issue where the organization that identifies with the product is not willing to embrace this new thing. And even to the
Correct.
extent that there's some level of sabotage taking place, whether if
Oh,
it's
yeah.
simple resource allocation, like, nope, you can't have those resources, to dirtier things, right? That's the painful part of this journey going to one to more products, right? I don't know if you can double down any on the cultural navigation of that or how you help the organization prepare to avoid that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some people that are just stuck with the existing model, and I saw it. I've seen it many times in businesses that I've been a part of. I've founded, I've led, where it's interesting. They smile, they nod their head, and they say they're on, and then
Right.
they go back to their cube or back to their home office or wherever they are, and they inevitably, just like an old habit, go back to, oh, this is how we did things and why we're successful. The unfortunate thing, Chad, and this is the tough part about people, and I don't think any of these would say kind things about me, which is you have to clear the decks,
Right.
and some of those people need to go.
Right.
And it's not that they're bad people. It's not that they're incompetent. It's not that they're not capable or smart or any of those things. But they're no longer a fit for the organization.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the old saw, what got you here is not going to get you there. And if there's a place for them in the organization where the business can value them and maintaining the existing business, that's wonderful. And they should be valued in that role. But if they're truly not committed to taking the ride to building out the business, and you've always got to keep your corporate hat on, right?
Hmm.
The company needs to come first for everything. It needs to come first for everything.
Right.
And if you put your corporate hat on, that's what's right for the business. Doing something less than that, protecting an existing product because you're familiar with the sales cycle or how it's sold or you like it or whatever it is really selfish. It's not in the best interest of the business. So you've got to do what's in the best interest of the business. So when those people have proven that they can't come along for the ride, they need to get off the merry-go-round.
Hmm.
And as a leader, you've got to be that person who makes that assessment of they can't come along for the next chapter of the ride.
Yeah.
And it's hard stuff. It's hard stuff. But it comes
Sure.
down to people, right? The
It,
other
it
thing is
does.
the longer the ride's been going on, and where one product has driven it, if you've been at it for 15, 20 years, you've been a one product company, and people have been with you for 10, 15 years of that, and they've been successful, asking them to change. It's like when someone says, hey, he or she is 55 years old or 60 years old. They're not going to, that's who they are. They're not going to change. And it's the same thing about those businesses. Those people in those businesses, they're not going to change.
Hmm.
They're just not. So don't ask them to do something that they can't do, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. Pull the band-aid off quickly, clear the decks. It's in their best interest because if they're not a fit for the organization, where the organization's going, and for the people that do want to go on that journey, right, it's create conflict for them as well to have
Right.
others in the organization that aren't part of that. So that's good advice. I appreciate you sharing that. And I was saying right to you when you said the company is the focus, and that's simply because if there is no company, everyone, there are no employees to benefit from being part of that company, and there are no customers getting benefit from the value created by that company, and there's no impact to the communities we work on. So to me,
That
that's a very straightforward relationship. So
it's very simple, but it has to be on the top of mind. The company, it just regardless of the political correctness of saying companies or people, it is a person to a degree without a voice. And so, in the role, particularly as CEO, you have to proxy as the voice for the company, right? But so does the executive management team or the board or
Hmm.
whoever it is. You have to give voice to the company and tell and be the voice of what the priorities are. So it's very important. And if you can't give voice to it, if you can't represent it, then you have to step back.
Right. Okay. I think we've covered some really good points. First, the absolute need to move from that first product to a second one. It's just the realities of the marketplace. If you want to stay as a sustainable business that has longevity, this is a move that needs to occur. And then some of the challenges along the way with risk and culture issues, the structural issues of maybe making that team autonomous to do that first move out, and then dealing with some of the management challenges as well and the resource challenges. So that was really good. I do have one more question that I want to get to, and we'll do that in a moment. Just to give you a heads up, right? I kind of hinted to what this question is in the introduction. I tried to work in a question from listeners, and this is actually a composite from several people who have shared something about this before, which is simply as product managers, we have this enormous amount of responsibility but not the influence. And I want to ask you about that. But first, we have to dove into portfolio management here. This is only one of 7 elements of product mastery that product managers must know. And my question for you is, how do you learn all the elements and strengthen what you already know as well? I do have a solution for that, and that provides all the elements for product mastery. It's organized in 7 research-backed knowledge areas, and it's called the Rapid Product Mastery Experience. That's the RPM experience. It builds upon your existing product management skills and also aligns with those 7 knowledge areas in a way that allows you to earn professional certification if you want to pursue that. And that's from PMN&x, the International Association for Product Managers and Innovators we alluded to earlier. And it is the training that prepares you for greater success and your next career step. If you're serious about creating more value for customers, improving your team, and growing your own career, then the RPM experience should be something you check out. And if you're a product VP, you can use the RPM experience to further develop your product managers and your product teams. Many organizations have already. Go to productmasterynow.com to learn more about the training and to get started. That's productmasterynow.com. Okay, Greg, back to that question. So this is the question. You're well familiar with the situation. All the responsibility, no actual influence, right? Until we get to be a CEO or a senior leader, we don't have real authority, and we have to somehow, if we use the word influence, build up our influence with others. What can you tell us to do this?
This is for those of us who have seen Dan Olson, he does the Spider-Man Dilbert picture on his slide deck, and it has all the responsibility and none of the authority, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so different than the Spider-Man motto. Look, I think it's really an important lesson for product managers to learn. And that is, you've got to build what I call the trust bank account. Now, that's not an original thought by me. Other people have written about something similar to the trust bank account. I actually stole that term from my wife, who taught it to me 40 years ago. But what does that mean? Well, look, as a young product manager, I learned very early on that I had 3 really primary constituents. First of all, I had a VP of development and a development team that I had to earn their trust, that I was representing their product and giving them feedback about what they should build in directionally. And it was their baby. They wanted to see that product succeed. They were spending a lot of time. They had their ego as well as their career wrapped up in that.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't expect them to trust me. I had to earn their trust. And I had to show them. And developers, by their nature, are a little bit more risk averse. And so you have to go a little bit slower and build that trust over time and show them that you are going to help them make what they're working on with their time more valuable and impactful in the marketplace. So that's number 1 on that side. Then you have the 180-degree side, which is the go-to-market, the crazy salespeople, and you've got to build trust with them too. And how do you build trust with them? Well, you're going to show them how the product that you've decided to build for the company and you're representing is going to put money in their pocket and help them reach their financial goals and their career
Yeah.
goals. So, and that takes building trust as well. So helping them sell that product, be successful with it, and everything. So that's but it's a different beast. Finally, there's the executive management. And as we talked about earlier in this conversation, you want to make sure as a product manager that executive management trusts you with the resource decisions that you do
Mm.
have, whether you have full P&L responsibility or not, or even if you're just managing the backlog decisions, that they can trust you with the decisions being made are going to satisfy the needs of the business. So there are a lot of other constituents. Don't get me wrong. There's finance constituents, there's customer success and service, there's services, all kinds of people. But I look at those three as really primary constituents of product managers that you have to make the deposits first. Your job is to make those first. And once you make those deposits first, then you can ask.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you give a little first, then you say, look, this is where I need your help. We've got to get this capability in this sprint, in this release. And they're going to say, okay, Greg,
Mm-hmm.
we'll figure out how to make that happen. Or we've got to get this deal over here working because this is going to be a lighthouse reference deal versus a key competitor. And we've got to make this happen. Greg, can you help us with this? And I tell a salesperson, can you help me get this deal?
Right.
And we're going to work on that. Okay, they're going to do that. And I show up at that quarterly business review, that annual planning review for the executives. I want my team to know that I'm representing them and they're going to get the resources they want and the respect from executive management because I'm representing them. To me, that is the job product manager that overcomes a lot of those issues. But again, a lot of people come into the job of product management and unfortunately, Chad, and I hear these stories all the time as someone comes in and they think they've been bestowed as they're the prima donna,
Right.
and now all of a sudden they're I get to make all the decisions. No, you're in a service job. You will get all that power and you will get to make those decisions when you give to the others first. And
Right.
then you'll earn that leadership role.
Right. There was that article many years ago on the product manager is the mini CEO of the product. And it's like, well, if you take out all the authority, then maybe that's true because the mini
That's
CEO
true.
has no authority over the.
That is correct. And I can tell you, having been a multi-time CEO, there are some threads. Look, even as a CEO, you can't just say, well, go
Sure.
do this.
Everyone has
This is
someone they answer
2024.
to.
And as a CEO, you have a boss, right? Everyone has a boss, right? So, but I agree with you. Persuasion and building trust
Yep.
is so much a better way to lead and get people. You want to get them ownership and drive and buy in. You don't want to just tell them how to do it. Get anybody to do that job.
Right. That's really good. So the three groups there, the development, right? The VP and the development team, salespeople, and then executive management. And you alluded to something as you talk about salespeople, the importance that as we are interacting with each of these groups, that we're thinking about what is important to them, what is motivating them, what are they trying to avoid, right? How do they think about risks and what are they trying to get done? And the more we can frame our work in terms of what satisfies their objectives, I think that helps build trust more quickly and rapport and certainly grows our persuasion and influence.
So well stated, Chad. Particularly just to riff a little bit on that sales thing is going back to the core subject here. In a portfolio product company, multiple products, salespeople in most cases they can sell whatever they want to sell. There's not quotas per each product in most companies. They have to bring in X amount of money, revenue, dollars in the United States. And if they bring it in all into one product, the company says, congratulations, and they still get their commission check. So as a product manager, your first job, you got to sell the customer and the marketplace. But the first job is you got to sell the salesperson. And the question you have to ask yourself is, how do I get in that salesperson's bag? How that salesperson has a product that they know, a pipeline that exists, that has a curve, I call it, that it's this much money over this much time and this much complexity. Well, if your product now takes twice as long to sell at half the value and is really hard to sell and there's a lot of competition, they're never going to bring it out of the bag. It's a DOA. And so you could have the greatest product with the most strategy and all the resources and marketing leads coming out the yin yang. And you know what? The salesperson is never going to sell it, and you're done. That's
Right.
it, dead. And then you go back to our cultural issue. It's like, oh, we tried a second product, but it didn't work. Well, maybe it did work, but you didn't figure out how to sell your own organization on how to get it to market.
Right. Yeah. One of the little tips I learned along the way was for that new product that you have more flexibility often in an organization, right? When that new product is being made and created. And if you can go to marketing or the sales group, and one organization we call them SPIFs, which I don't even remember what that stands
Oh,
for,
yeah.
a special incentive for the salespeople that say, hey, for the first 6 months, every sale you make of this new thing, right? Thank you very much. You get an extra bonus on top of your current objectives, right? Like, okay, now I'm making sure I'm getting out of the bag with that product, right?
Right.
So
Right.
good thing to try to navigate
But even on
organization.
those issues, I'll tell you, I've run into those. And I've gone into saying, oh, we want to do this, and executive management say, well, we don't want to corrupt what's happening in the marketplace and have our salespeople chasing something that's harder to sell. It may screw up our quarter, so we don't want to do it. So you're fighting every step of the way, all the issues to try to get your product out and birthed and successful, right? I used to have by the way, and a similar thing, I used to have a really great product developer I worked with years ago. And he used to say to me, Greg, don't stop trying to sell the whole sales force. He said, just poison a few of them. And what you want to do is just poison like one guy in Chicago and one girl in New York and one person down in Florida. And get them to be your lighthouse reference salespeople.
Right.
And once they start selling, then the other ones will start saying, oh, are you making money off of that? How did you do that? And they'll come along. And you know what? That was great advice. We think about that when we're going out to customers, that we don't need to sell the whole marketplace. We just need to start get our early references. But when you have a channel, whether it's a direct or indirect channel, sometimes we forget that it's the same thing. We need to sell those people and focus on just a few of them. And once we get them, then we can broaden. So it was tremendous advice for me.
That's really good advice and a good tip for all of us as well. And I'm looking for advice in one more area, which is in the form of an innovation quote. We love quotes, and I'm curious why you chose it for us. So tell us about that.
Uh-oh. What was the quote I chose here, Chad?
Well, thankfully, you sent this to me ahead of time, so I can actually tell you.
Thank God.
So I will read the quote. You get to explain it. Kill your cash cows rather than trying to milk them dry.
Yeah, I think it goes right to what we're talking about here today. Cash cows make the best burgers. I think it was the title of an old book, and it's so true. And it goes to this issue of you can hang on to your product too long. You want to be the person who attacks your product to create the next generation of your product. Don't wait till your competitors do. Or worse yet, just don't wait till it dies on the vine in the marketplace. Everything has its life cycle. Everything has a beginning and ending. Everything, it will stop sooner or later. So prepare now and invest now. Don't wait for the inevitable. The best time to look at your business is not when everything's going great, or when bad things happen. You say,
Right.
when things are going great, that's when you should start looking around, saying to yourself, okay, what's wrong? What's the customer that's unhappy? What's the product problem set that we have over here? Because there's problems. There always is problems. Similarly, with a product set, don't hang on to that. Look at your cash cows. Very early on as a product manager, I was blessed to run a product set that was the flagship of the company I was working with. And I realized that the marketplace we were in, while we had a beautiful product and it was really growing well, and we had almost a damn near monopoly with this product set, that the market was changing all around us. And that if we didn't add more products around it, sooner or later we were going to get choked off and more money was going to be spent in other areas. So we had to play in the broader marketplace. So what I did is I said, what are the resources and goals we need to continue to grow this business at the success rate? How do we use that as the bank? How do we use that as our venture capitalist? How do we use that as our friends, family, and fools investment?
Right.
Use that cash cow and pull it out. And instead of continuing to add more resource to it, make it a little bit tighter and take that cash and start placing risk, whether it's on acquisitions, new products, whatever it is, and start taking risks in other areas. And over time, in a 5, 6 year period, all of a sudden we had a 6, 7 product set family of products that we built. And that cash cow was still fine, making money, no problems, everything like that. But now we had other successful products and more awareness, more brand awareness, more profitability, all those things. So use the cash cow as the bank. Go after it if you have to kill it and drive your business for growth.
Excellent. Really good quote and really good explanation and strategy involved there too, as well as making sure that that cash cow can be used for future products and future revenue generation for the organization. So that's fantastic. Greg, what makes this interview work for you? What do you want listeners to know about the work you're doing or anything else you want to tell us about?
Well, first of all, I love this space, as you can tell. Hopefully, I love product management. I've dedicated my life, even though I've played a variety of different roles in a variety of different businesses, typically bounded by B2B technology, but in a lot of different spaces. I just love the challenges of product. Are that it's just always because there's always things that are changing. There are new variables that are always introduced. And it really, you can't just take what was successful 5 years ago or 10 years ago and say, well, we're just going to lift the same playbook and apply it here. And magically, we're going to have this wonderful outcome again. It just doesn't work that way. So it pushes you to constantly think about your assumptions. So my work today, as you mentioned, I'm honored to be the CEO of SE Healthcare. We're helping solve the problem of burnout with clinicians, nurses, and physicians in hospitals and healthcare settings. And it's a great product. It's what would be labeled as a category as digital therapeutics. We're adding not only the data analytics for hospital administrators to understand what's going on with burnout with their people, but then we're also providing the remediation through content, micro learnings, all kinds of things to help reduce that burnout. This goes right to patient outcomes. It goes right to nurse retention, which is a big problem in the United States and worldwide. On the other side of my
Absolutely.
business, I'm helping other CEOs and I'm using my experience to help coach them. Everybody needs a coach. I had a coach at Sophion in my last job, but I think it made me a better CEO. And I'm honored to be a part of CEO Coaching International and helping CEOs who are in various phases, whether a private equity CEO or a startup CEO or whatever, the family owned business CEO, and helping them get through some of the issues that we talked about here today, Chad, which is we're a single product company, we're going multi product, but there's, of course, thousands of others.
Yes, lots of situations, and you have very good experience to share and help people with that, and hope they reach out. I wanted to ask you about that CEO coaching, because a lot of the product VPs, certainly the vast majority of ones I've talked to, often share that they have a coach that helps them. And I don't know if you have any interest in coaching product VPs, but they're in a position where they're trying to also learn how to influence that C-suite, and maybe often even move up to that C-suite, right? And I don't know if that's on your list of things to do or
It
not.
is on my list, and I would be, and if there are people out there listening and would like to contact me, I'm more than happy to help out. And it is something that I think is, as you mentioned, it's out there today. There are coaches for product leaders, whether they're a product manager, an individual contributor, or director, or chief product officer, whatever they are. These are tough jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they are CEO jobs in a sense. And you do need a coach to get the best out of you in terms of whatever position you're playing.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so we'll put into the show notes the link to SE Healthcare if people want to check that out. And such an important thing as our medical care is burnout is an issue, right? We'll just leave it at that. CEO coaching, how can people find out information about you and look into that?
They can just go to CEO Coaching. It's ceoci.com, and they can find my biography and contact information there at
Okay.
ceoci.com. So it's right there, and we're happy to help people. And there is a lot of need for coaches in various stages of businesses. But I agree with you. This is the whole executive management team in various stages as they want to grow their businesses.
Yeah, very good. Okay, what a great pleasure talking with you. Really appreciate your time to join us today, Greg.
Chad, thank you very much. Always an honor and pleasure. And thank you for everything you do for innovators, product managers, and people that care about products.
I love doing it. And for listeners, if you do want to find everything that we talked about in a written form, we do try to create an article for you each week as well. And that will talk about these top topics of increasing your portfolio product knowledge and moving from one to many. And also some of the other good nugget that Greg shared with us, such as increasing our influence and some of the strategy insights. You'll find those resources at productmasterynow.com/507. As always, keep innovating.
Thank you for listening to Product Mastery Now, where product leaders and managers gain product mastery through practical knowledge, influence, and confidence. By listening, you are becoming a product master, creating products customers love. Find additional resources at productmasterynow.com. Keep innovating.